Hi, I'm Francina McCory, two-time Olympic gold medalist, and you're watching Chuck Bushbeck Live.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to Chuck Bushbeck Live. And we are honored and privileged to bring you Heart of a Champion. From those individuals who achieve excellence, clearly make a difference in our lives. I am your host, Chuck Bushbeck, with our producer, Joe Lee. We got another great show lined up for you today. We are with former first-round draft pick of the Philadelphia Phillies and relief pitcher of the Atlanta Braves, Jesse Biddle. Jess, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege on my end.
What did you wake up? Did I wake you up? I know you're in Cali and you're in a different time mode. I see you with the coffee and everything. So did we get you out of bed, or is everything cool?
If you don't think that I've already done my workout by 9 a.m., you don't know me.
What are you doing now? What do you do in the morning?
What am I not doing?
Really?
Yeah, I'm an early riser. You know, every day I'm up at 6 a.m. and I'm in the gym training. So you said we were going to do this at 9 a.m. and I said, all right, that gives me a couple hours.
Well, is it like a Rocky type of training that you do? You know, similar to the facility, and we'll talk about that.
No, I mean, right now I'm kind of like in the early part of my off season.
Yeah.
So the big thing I'm just trying to do is like just get in shape, right? Just overall get in good shape. And then like as I get closer to the season, I start to build to, throwing more, building more power, and like getting in like specific baseball shape.
Yeah.
But right now it's just like this morning, I just went for like a really long bike ride. That was a big thing.
You're a big biker. I saw some of your stuff online.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I'm definitely getting pretty into it. Trying to build some bulletproof legs.
Well, for people that don't know, Jesse just recently was married. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Did you have your honeymoon? Were you able to do it? Because I know you had to rush off to Florida with your wife, Annie.
Yeah, you know what? We're busy people, so a honeymoon was a little bit hard to schedule.
Yeah.
We are, we have some big adventures coming up in the next few months. So that's going to be probably, we're going to kind of dovetail our honeymoon in with that.
Oh, cool.
But Chuck, you were at the wedding, which we were honored to have you. I have known you for a very long time, and it meant a lot to have you there on the big day.
Well, we had a great time, and you had a great backdrop for your wedding. That was phenomenal, and I don't want to get totally into that though. But apparently, there was a lot of work done. And for people that don't know, it was almost like a ravine that you got married in, with a little pond, and it was quite the attraction.
Yeah, no, it was sort of a DIY wedding. There was a lot of time and effort that went into that space. So, this show is called Heart of a Champion.
Right.
I think getting married takes kind of a heart of a champion. So I was just, I'm glad that I did it. I took the big plunge, and it's been great.
That's awesome, man. Well, for those that don't know, I've known Jesse since high school, from a recent workout back then in high school that he went to, and he came over to see us, and we started working together in the bullpens. But what I want to do, Jess, is before we move further in time, I want to go back, and part of being a champion, as long as I've been doing this, we found some consistencies with guests that have talked about how they grew up, what was their upbringing like, your brothers, and how different you were, and how you have a different mindset than mom and dad even, maybe. So can you go into a little bit about how, when did you know baseball was part of your game? Was it at a very young age? Because you were obviously a good athlete. You did other things.
Yeah, so I have two brothers, an older and a younger. So I'm in the middle. And, my older brother was a talented baseball player. So I was kind of trying to follow in his footsteps. It helped that I was sort of freakishly tall at a young age and left-handed. So that sort of like pushes you towards baseball. And then just being, someone who really enjoyed, I just loved pitching ever since I was a kid. As soon as I had the ball, I just, never wanted to leave the mound. And when I think originally it was sort of just a means to an end. It was like a way to get to college without my parents having to pay for it. That was sort of the intention. Playing professionally was sort of felt like a dream. Being from Philadelphia, like there isn't a ton of Major League Baseball players coming out of the city.
Right.
And so I just had really no idea, what that would look like, what that would take. I just knew that I really enjoyed the game. And it wasn't until I started working with you that my game started to really kind of like get focused, and I started to really focus in my training. And then I started to realize that like I could really push this thing to the point where, I could do something serious with it.
And what do you think, other than being tall and left-handed, where I'm sure everyone said, "Hey, Jess, you're tall and left-handed. Let me see how you throw the ball." But you were a hitter too. Was there any other interest that you were gravitating towards, or is it just has been baseball all the time?
Yeah, I mean, athletically, I always enjoyed basketball as well. Once again, I was 6'5" at 14 years old. So I stopped growing at 14. But for me, like, I think that's something that my parents instilled in me at a young age, which is just like, it's okay to be singularly focused. A lot of people, maybe encourage you to explore different things. And I was like very creative and I enjoyed school, but my parents were like, look, it's okay. If you really want to do this baseball thing, it's okay to really go for it, And that's when, when I was 14 years old, after my freshman year of high school, I quit basketball and just stayed really focused on baseball. And that's when I met you. And, I think, my dad, when I was young, he had this thing where he would like almost root for me to fail because he knew that I was talented and he knew that I was good. And he knew that failure was going to be a good thing for me in the long run. And I never really understood that until I got older, but it made a lot of sense and honestly helped me learn how to deal with adversity, deal with failure moving forward.
Now, when you were growing up, you and we'll give a shout out to your high school, Germantown friends, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
exactly.
But you grew up a Quaker. and
yeah.
So what was life at home for you? Was it discipline? Was it say just do what you want to do, but staying within these this groundwork, or how was life as you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, I am like eternally grateful to Germantown friends. I started there when I was in kindergarten. It's not an athletically driven school. Athletics are really secondary, maybe even tertiary to like education and even the arts program. So that made me have to stay focused in school. There were no shortcuts. There was no like, getting extensions on papers. It was like, you have to get your schoolwork done. And that taught me a lot just about perspective and knowing that baseball was not the end all be all in my life, even though it felt like it sometimes. And as I got closer and closer to getting drafted, I was kind of really looking for shortcuts and looking for avenues in which I could like kind of get around doing homework. And they were really adamant about like, if you want to be at this school, you have to be at this school and you have to do your homework. And, like it really made a difference in the way I viewed the world, honestly.
So we had talked before when you were drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies in the first round, 2010, right? Was it 2010? Okay. And
yeah,
we were actually there with you celebrating when you did get drafted. And I actually have your first autograph, and it's on a baseball bat, not a ball. I didn't have a ball in my car. So when did you, I mean, other than that draft day, what was the point in your career that you knew that, one, this is what you were going to do, and two, you knew you could do it?
Like up until that day?
Yeah,
which
until
day
that
did
day.
I remember when I was when I was 14 years old, I was playing in like a travel ball game in the city, and we were playing against Olney. And I had a couple hits, and I pitched really well that day. And I was standing on first base, and or I was playing first base, and their first base coach said to me, "Hey, you're really good. Like, you might be able to play professionally." And it hit me like a wave. I was like the guys you see on TV.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "That." It didn't compute with me until that point. And then, honestly, like when you and I started working together, I went from just like a high school kid with a little bit of talent and like a good frame to like, a real major league caliber prospect. So yeah, I mean, 14, 15 years old is when I started to look at it as like, okay, this might actually be something.
I'm kind of liking this a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the other thing is like once you start getting good at something, and you're not just like raw and talented, you're actually like getting good at it.
Yeah.
You become addicted to the process. And like, I just became addicted to like I would throw with you and Chuck Bechtel every week. And it was just like, how can I be better than I was last week? Like, that's just what I became obsessed with. And that's still what I'm obsessed with, whether it's my workouts or really any hobbies I have. It's always just being obsessed with being better than yesterday.
Now, was there a time up until the point you were drafted that did you ever doubt yourself, or did that not even enter your mind?
Oh, no. Doubt is like a good friend of mine. I know Doubt very well. Doubt is he's always in the back of my brain. I remember I went to this big tournament. I got invited to this big tournament in North Carolina when I was a senior in high school, and they pick 32 guys to try out for Team USA. There's 400 players who go to this. They pick the top 32, and I get picked for it. And I am like, I have to leave school to go to the tryout.
Right.
And I leave class and I'm like, all right, well, I'll see you guys later. I'm going to go make the team, and, I'll see you guys in a few months. And I go try out, and I pitch really well. I mean, I throw really well and I'm playing against all the top guys, right? I mean, it's top 32 players in the country.
Right.
And I get cut, even though I pitched well, even though, I felt like I was one of the better guys there. And I remember them cutting me, and it was the first time I had been like told, you're not good enough, or you're not a good fit. And that feeling of just like, wow, I mean, maybe this isn't what I'm meant to do, or maybe I'm not good enough, was so real, and it hit me so hard. But I remember calling my dad, and my dad just being like, this is a part of it. Like, this is going to happen. And he was like, put that shirt that they gave you that says like Team USA, put that shirt on and go to the gym tomorrow when you come back to Philly and wear that shirt as a reminder. And that's what I did. I was up at 6 a.m. the next day in the gym wearing that shirt, just reminding myself, this is what you work for.
So this is part of what you were saying earlier about your dad, about the failure is actually part of your springboard moving forward, because you obviously got to the point in your mind, like, I am not going back to this feeling anymore. And you made.
Yeah. And then there's a sense of just being like comfortable with failure.
Yeah.
Understanding that it's a part of it. I used to get so worked up when I was like 11, 12, 13, because, and this is the thing about baseball that I think is so important and why every kid should play it, is you can't be perfect. You get out, you give up runs, there are errors behind you. Like, there's constant failure all the time, and you have to learn to deal with it. And I just really struggled with that for a long time. And, it's a testament to my parents just getting me to understand that like there's a beauty in it, and there's a beauty in the journey, and like getting out is just an opportunity to appreciate getting a hit. And that was, that's a lesson I take with me today.
So fast forward in 2010, you're finally drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies in the first round, and I can just imagine what that felt like. The point of this is what you work so hard for. This was your goal, and then you get to the Phillies. Tell me about the type of people that you were around when you went to spring training. And I know, please name drop, because the players that you were surrounded by. Give us some insight into what they taught you about the game of baseball and Major League Baseball.
Yeah. So I caught the Phillies at an interesting time, right? They had just won the World Series in 2008, which I was actually at and in attendance, which was the coolest sporting event I'll ever go to in my life. And 2010 sort of marks a little bit of the beginning of the downfall of the organization. And Chuck, you've been with me in some big days, right? You were with me on
Absolutely.
my wedding, and then you were with me on the day I got drafted in 2010, a long time ago.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a very long time. But I remember my first big league camp, which was 2014, I believe. And I'm doing, just like routine bunt plays. And when you do bunt plays in practice, you have to like check the second baseman and the shortstop. They give you a sign to let you know when to throw. And I look back and there's Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins, Yeah. And I got Ryan Howard over at first base, and Cliff Lee and Cole Hamels are kind of waiting in line to go next. And I just had this feeling of like, I can't believe that I'm standing here right now. I really can't. And to say like that I was starstruck is a little bit, that's not exactly, it's more like I felt like I was like one of them in a way of, they were just so welcoming and so gracious and so kind to me at all times. It really, like, I have no bad words about any of them. They were all so, just so wonderful. And like, I had such a good time in spring training, getting to know those guys. But one of my favorite stories is, Cliff Lee he was a little bit of a gambler and he loved to, like gamble on, like conditioning tests. So one of our conditioning tests is you had to run a double pole. So you have to go, from the left field pole to the right field pole and back.
Right.
As fast as you can. And he was like, anybody who beats me gets $500. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And he's like, but if I beat you, you got to give me $100. And everybody was like, no way, because Cliff Lee can run.
Yeah.
He can run. And so the gun goes off and we book it. And me and him are out in the front. We're going. And he's a little bit in front of me, and we hit the line and we come back. We're about halfway back and my legs are burning. But I can feel him slowing down. And he just, like, under his breath, he just goes, "Oh, you young MFer." And I just toast him on the last half. And I had $500 waiting in my locker after that.
That's good scratch, especially, young kid. I know you obviously signed your contract and everything, but you got Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels. I mean,
Yeah.
You have incredible amount of support. Was there any one of those pitchers that taught you one big lesson other than the Cliff Lee race?
Yeah, I mean, Halladay was an important figure to me. He was somebody that, we all idolized, obviously. There was a kind of an aura around him. You could even see it in the way that Lee and Hamels talked to him. Mm-hmm. Or just, kind of got out of his way when it was his day to pitch, or there was
Tenacity?
something that yeah, that's a good word. Exactly. There was like he was magic. I mean, it was like everywhere he went, everybody was just in awe of him.
Yeah.
He was larger than life in the clubhouse. And so, the year that I want to say it was 2015, it was my second spring training. He had just retired and he was there as a, like, what did he call himself? He called himself a pitching consultant / soccer dad. And he sat down with me, and, I still have his number in my phone. We had a few phone calls. We got to know each other pretty well. And I think the real, like, the lessons that I learned from him were simply just like, don't overcomplicate the game. Mm-hmm. Keep it simple. But then also, like, preparation. There's this kind of question that we ask ourselves, like, as players, which is like, what comes first, confidence or success, right? And I think the lesson that I learned from Halladay is that it's preparation.
Okay.
It comes before any of those. And preparation is the thing that gives you confidence, which is the thing that gives you success.
Right.
And just watching the way he went about his business was really fascinating. But the thing I learned from all three of them, right, because they're all on the staff together, is there's no one way to do it, right? Like, Hamels, Lee, and Halladay, like, well documented, they are three very different people. And they go about their business in very different ways. Yeah. But they're all incredibly successful. And there's a reason for that, which is just like, you have to find what works for you. And, that was a thing that I struggled with for a very long time.
And you had a cast of characters down there. And there was a moment, and I remember you talking about this a while ago. I think you were on the hill, and I think Chooch was catching you. And you know the story I'm going to talk about?
Yeah, of course. That one hurt.
Can you tell the audience the somewhat funny moment that transpired while you were in spring training?
Yeah, so that was my first time ever throwing against big league hitters. And Halladay actually came to watch me. It was Halladay and Charlie Manuel were standing. I was throwing like a live BP. So there's like a cage. So they're standing behind the cage watching me throw. And I'm facing Utley, Howard, Bobby Abreu was on the team. Yeah. He was back on the team. And Rollins. So the four of those guys, and I got to pitch to him each like 3 times. And I had heard that you have the option of either having the catcher tell the guys what's coming, so that they're just kind of tracking pitches, or the catcher, you can play it like a real game and the catcher doesn't say what you're throwing. And so I opted to not have the catcher say what they're throwing, because I wanted to play this like a real game. I don't know how many times I get a chance to pitch against Ryan Howard in my life, so let's see what I can do. And so I go out there and I throw like a good fastball, get ahead, and then I throw a breaking ball, and Howard just crushes it, just absolutely crushes it. And then Abreu comes up and he crushes a slider on the outside corner. And like, Utley's just taking pitches. He's not really swinging, but I'm just getting whacked all over the place. And then Utley at the very end is the last pitch I throw him. I throw him like fastball up and he hits a double off the wall. And I don't know if I got anybody out at this time. I mean, it was just like, it looked like I had never played baseball before. And it looked like these guys, I was thinking to myself, is this what Major League pitching? Like, is this Major League hitting? Like, is this how good they are? Because if this is how good they are, I'll never, ever make it. This is it. I mean, I should probably just give them my cleats on my way out. And I walk off and Howard comes up to me and says, "Hey man, you look really good out there." And I was like, "Thanks, man. Like, you're being sarcastic." And he goes, "No, you look great." And Utley's like, "Hey, really good job. You pitched really well." I was like, "What the hell? What are they talking about?" And I was like, Carlos Ruiz comes up to me, he was catching, and I'm like, "Man, that was ugly. Like, what happened out there? They were all over me." He goes, "Oh yeah, I was telling him everything I was doing." I was like, that my heart sunk. I was like, okay, that at least makes me feel better. And Halliday came up to me afterwards. He was like, yeah, no, he was telling him everything. He was just messing with you.
I would think
All
that
right.
that made you
Good
come
to
up
know.
big time, because I can imagine you kind of
Yes.
saying, I'm kind of doubting myself right now.
It
This
feels
is
like
not
they know
Exactly.
everything I'm throwing.
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, because I up to that point had a lot of success in the minor leagues and was like, really, I had, my curveball was my bread and butter, and these AA guys were having a lot of trouble with it. But as soon as the big league hitters get in, I'm throwing the exact same pitches and just getting whacked. And, just that one was like, that was a really kind of welcome to the big leagues moment,
Well, you mentioned the minor leagues. And before we get to the Braves, we have a special guest that's going to join us. And I think you may know him. Andrew Nelson from the Reading
guys hear me?
Phillies. Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
I can't hear you.
Also known as Nelly. And I had the fortunate pleasure to be sitting next to him at your wedding. And I said,
Wow.
Biddle's coming on the podcast. And I said, would you mind coming in and let's talk about Jesse and making his way to Major League Baseball through Reading, the Phillies minor league organization in general. And Nelly started telling me stories. And I said, you know what? Now hold those stories, because I want you on the podcast. and I want to know the real Jesse Biddle behind Jesse Biddle. So other than being the number 1 draft pick for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2010, and in that year with the Braves, 2018, just a phenomenal year for you out of the bullpen. Nelly, tell me what we need to know about Jess.
What's going on? You guys hear me all right?
We got you loud and clear.
All right. What's up, Jess? Surprised to see me? This is what happens when you put me next to this guy at your wedding.
I didn't expect the ambush. But yes, you are a sight for sore eyes. It's nice to see you.
It's always good to see you. So let's see. I mean, I met him. When did we meet? In spring training, I think in 13. Probably your first year was in Reading. Yeah. So I think Buchanan was with us in 12, and I remember being in spring training, and I'm like, all right, I think we're getting this first round pick, guys. Jesse Biddle. I got to find out how he is, what he is as a person. So I was like, Buck, do me a favor, introduce me to this guy. Let me see what he's about. And honestly, one of the nicest people I'd ever met. It shocked me. No, I mean, you never know how first round picks are in baseball player. I mean, it's always good to get a read on people, and super friendly. Whether he's lying to me or not, he's like, I've heard a lot about you. Buck's talked about you. It's really nice to meet you, Nelly. Like, so, I mean, that's where it started. And then he comes up, and 13 was a fun year. I know, there was a bunch of guys, and he did pretty well, I think. Reading's a hard place to play in. I know that.
Yeah. Hard place to pitch in.
Yeah, very hard place to pitch in, which I think gets a lot of people a little screwed up when they first get there and they hit a fly ball and you're like, all right, that's out in center field. That's an easy catch. And it's over the brick wall behind Reading.
Nelly, what if you had to identify 2, maybe 3 great stories of Jesse Biddle coming through the system, what would they be?
2 or 3 great stories. I mean, for me, in 13,
you can throw him under the bus too if you want to. I mean, good or whatever.
I could, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not that kind of a guy. I remember he went to the Futures game. Him and Franco were like, Mike Franco. They were the 2 guys. That was it. Like 2013, that's who we're promoting. That was my second year in Reading. So the first year, there wasn't really anybody highly touted. It was just kind of a group of guys that the Phillies had at that year. So really, that was my first experience. Like, all right, I got 2 guys that are coming from Clearwater. These are like the prospects. Everyone's excited to see them. And then they make it to the Futures game. So, I mean, they leave halfway through the year. I think we're still playing. So we had the Futures game on in the clubhouse, and we're watching these guys. And I don't know if you know this, but bullpen guys don't like being out in the bullpen.
Is that right? Is that right?
No. So they all just come in every inning, the entire bullpen, and hang out. So I remember like, hey, guys, I think Jesse's getting ready to pitch in this game. Like, just a heads up. So that half inning ends, and like literally the entire bullpen comes into the clubhouse, and we're watching.
Nice. Yeah.
And then somehow, miraculously, him and Franco end up facing each other. And he strikes him out, which I'm sure is one of his highlights because that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was the first. I mean, that was the first one. That was a pretty cool experience, just kind of being in the clubhouse with everybody, watching that, kind of getting to enjoy like a big moment for Jesse. And I'm sure that was one of the first big moments, like on a big stage, where he kind of showed off with his big head of his. Walked off the mound with a strut.
Yeah, the quick aside about that story. Me and Franco, Franco and I have been friends for, he was my GCL third baseman. So like when we were in rookie ball at 18, so I came in to pitch in that game. It was a 1-run game in the Futures game, and I came in with runners on second and third to face Franco because the way they split up the teams is the World versus USA. So Franco was on the World team, and I strike him out in 3 pitches. And the look he gave me was just like, you're such an asshole. So from that point on, I've called him, and we've been friends for another 7-8 years now.
Yeah.
I've called him Tres Picheos, which means 3 pitches.
That's great.
And I've been calling him Tres Picheos for as long as I've known him. We were just in Gwinnett together in AAA with the Braves at the end of the year. He was my third baseman there as well. And so he's still Tres Picheos to me.
Nelly, give me one more. You have one more for Jesse? You were starting to telling me about, and I'm aware of this. There was this hailstorm that happened up in Reading, and Jesse Biddle was kind of in the middle of things, and you had a unique take on it. Can you tell us what that looked like?
That's definitely not one of his favorite stories to tell. I know that. It was a
story of tragedy.
A freak storm it was like early spring, and I don't think we've ever had anything like that in Reading. And I think we had just finished a homestand, so it was probably a Sunday, and we had like an hour and a half before the bus, and he's like, hey, I forgot something. I'm going to go run back to my apartment. I'm going to grab what I need. I'll be back 20 minutes. No problem. And then all of a sudden the clouds get super dark, super crazy. And at the stadium, it hailed pretty bad, but it wasn't like, there was like, I'm saying it was palm size hail in Reading.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy because we're out there, we're trying to load the bus, and all of a sudden it's just a downpour. So then we're like, okay, well, we have everybody but Jesse. Let's see where Jesse's at. And I call him, and he's like, there's 0% chance I'm getting back to the stadium right now. My car is destroyed. Somebody's got to pick me up. So I go in, I'm talking to, I get John May, and he's like, just go grab him, get him. We got to get out of here. And I'm trying to drive through Reading, and it's an apocalypse. I've never witnessed this before. There's cars on the side of the road, windshields are completely smashed. People are like literally pulled off to the side, everybody, and just like standing around. So I finally get to his apartment, and it's like trees are down, branches are down. And I'm like, are you okay? He goes, I need to grab something out of my car. The storm finally passed, so we're not getting hit anymore. And we get to his car, and I've never seen the amount of cracks in his front and back windshield. His back windshield was gone. Front windshield had at least 200 cracks in it from hail. It was crazy. We got him back. They were able to leave, but I know I've never witnessed that before. The chances of that happening within the 30 minutes of him leaving, and I know that it was hard for him, but you know Jesse, he doesn't give up easily. He made it through it, but it was scary. I will never forget that and I know Jesse won't. But that was wild. It was fun driving back though, wasn't it?
Yeah, Nelly, you're a superhero, man. Seriously, honestly, like that story is truly like a little bit sad because it led to me. I got a concussion from that. I had to escape my car and run to like the nearest building I could find. I was like bleeding out of my head, getting destroyed by this hail. I had also just bought that car like a couple of months before, and it was completely totaled. So I had to get a new car. But Nelly, like, at the risk of making this podcast about Nelly's
Okay.
like, so Reading, Pennsylvania, like Reading AA. I don't know, if there's some Philly fans out there, like Reading is a storied place, and every Phillies player goes through it. What people don't talk about is how tiny that clubhouse is and how giant baseball players are. And Nelly was in charge of that clubhouse in that space. And that is like, I mean, you're like a zookeeper, and you got to keep everybody in line, and you have the most perfect temperament for it. And like, you were literally a legend throughout all of the Phillies minor leagues, as the best clubby that we had. And like, you just took great care of us, and you did the best with the space that you were given.
Chuck, I don't think I've ever heard him say that before.
I wanted the private confession on our podcast that he wanted to recognize you, because as you were telling me these stories, he did mention you. I forget when it was, but I didn't know you at that point.
Yeah.
We were talking about the hailstorm and such. So kudos. I mean, I know you've done a number. You wear a lot of different hats out there. And I know Jesse appreciates you coming on his podcast today. But we made it about Nelly too, because it's people like yourself that makes other people go, the things that you do behind the scenes. So I wanted to bring you on and recognize your talents for what you do. And as Jesse said, with wearing all the hats that you did, you make it go with a little, I guess you would call that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, I don't want to throw back a huge compliment back at Jesse right here, but I mean, it's guys like him in the clubhouse with his kind of demeanor and his friendliness that kind of makes each day easier, because it's true. I mean, Reading, I think it's like 20 square feet for 30 guys to be sitting in there.
Yeah.
And if you have guys that aren't fun to be around and aren't having a good time and laughing and joking and making your day good, I mean, it's a hard job. You're with these guys 13, 14 hours a day. So to kind of have them walk in and have a huge smile on their face, "What's up, Nelly? Good to see you," and not just have like a down attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesse's always been that type of guy. Which is incredible. So I also thank him, because that was early on in my clubby days. So having somebody like that for, 3 years, to kind of be right there by my side each day made it very good, very fun.
Awesome. Nelly, thanks for coming on and being part of our Chuck Bushbeck Live Heart of a Champion. You have it.
Appreciate you guys inviting me.
Yeah. Have a good one, and go Reading.
Yeah, go Reading. All right.
See you, man. Thank you.
You're the man.
Yeah.
Later, dude.
You too.
So there we go. So
wow.
Yeah, I needed this. I need to do something for you today.
Wow.
And when I was sitting next to him at the wedding, he was starting to get into stories. I said, hold that. I don't want to know about it. Just hold it. So, everybody has minor league stories, right? I mean, that's the fun part of baseball. We're chasing a chicken. They made me put on a Stella.
Yeah.
What is it? Stella, what's her name? And she has the one player I knew, they gave him a backpack, and was Stella Dora. What was that?
Dora?
Dora the Explorer. That's what it was.
Stella,
there you go.
Yeah, and
Stella Dora, they make cookies.
Yeah, Dora the Explorer, and he had to wear that and come out of the bullpen. It was just, so I get the minor league stuff, but moving forward, and I know you had doubts getting out of AA ball and then eventually to the Iron Pigs in AAA. You finally broke through to Major League Baseball after some hardships. There's some injuries, and other than getting hit in the head with hail, there's been some turbulent times. Go and take us back to the day where you knew that you were stepping on the mound for the first time. Do you remember that?
Like the Major League mound?
Other than spring training, but your first game.
Yeah. So, I had a lot of hardships, as you mentioned. Nelly mentioned that I was in Reading for 3 years. He said that in passing, almost made it sound like it was by choice. And that's maybe why we're so close, is because I was there for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, that's longer than you're supposed to be in AA. And there's a reason for that, which is, I was getting injured a lot, as well as, really just struggling to stay consistent. So, eventually I had Tommy John surgery in 2015, which is, an elbow surgery. And then I got traded from the Phillies and ended up with the Braves. And I think a change of scenery was really good for me and really important. But, so I got drafted in 2010. I didn't make my debut until 2018. So that's a lot of time to kind of sit and stew and think, like, is this actually going to happen? And I remember, I was in AAA with the Braves in 2018 out of spring training. I didn't have a very good spring training. I kind of barely made the AAA roster. They were thinking about sending me back to AA. And I think there was something that clicked in my brain where I just decided, you know what, this might be it. I'm going to just go out on the mound, throw what I got, let it all hang out every time, and just see what happens. And I had 4 really good outings to start the year. And I got a call at midnight after my 4th outing. I got a call from my AAA manager. And my brain at this point in my career had become so attuned to just like bad news and like that it didn't even occur to me that he was calling me to tell me that I was going to the big leagues. I just kind of thought he was calling me to tell me that, like, I was traded, I was released, I was something. And he called me and he goes, he said something like, "You want to pitch against the Mets tomorrow?"
Oh, by the way.
And I was just like, yes, I do. He literally called me at midnight. I had fallen asleep maybe 10 minutes before. So I was super like, am I dreaming right now? And then, I reported to the field the next day. They sat me for a couple days. I got a little bit of the lay of the land, didn't pitch. And then I got brought in the 9th inning of a 1-run game. Our bullpen was pretty depleted, and I'm pitching against the Mets in Atlanta. We were down 1. And the feeling I had running out there it wasn't like the movies where you have this like, oh my gosh, look at all these fans. What a moment.
Yeah.
It was a feeling of just like, let's see what happens. I got nothing to lose. Let's just see what happens.
Quite a different
mindset.
Quite a different mindset than maybe some of the times you've had earlier in your career.
Right. And I think if I maybe had gotten called up in a couple of years before, I might have had I really would have had a different mindset. I might have been a little bit awestruck and like doe-eyed or caught in the headlights. But I really had this feeling of just like, let's see what I can do. And I get out there, get 2 outs really quickly, like 3 pitches. And then I walk a guy, and Cespedes comes up, and I try to sneak a fastball by him, which, like, I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't throw 100, I throw pretty hard, but I don't throw that hard. And I try to go fastball inside on him, and I hit my spot, and he hits it. I mean, we're talking, triple deck. And it looks like it goes foul pretty clearly. And the umpire calls it fair. And I'm laughing. I'm like, that can't be, there's no way that's fair. And my third baseman's like, don't worry, that's foul. Don't worry, you're good. And I said to the home plate umpire who comes out, the home plate umpire's like going to give me a new ball. And because he's like, it's a home run. And I was like, hey, you got that fair or foul? And he goes, honestly, if you didn't hit it so far, I'd be able to tell. And I was like, all right, man. Like it was one of those things. So like he's big dogging the rookie,
Yeah, I got you.
And but they end up reviewing it, calling it foul, and because I'm stubborn, I threw him another fastball, and he hit a ground ball, and I got out of the inning. And then we ended up winning that game. We ended up walking it off, and I got a win with my first outing, which is pretty awesome.
I know you got to go. I want to ask you 2 questions before you get out of here. One,
of course.
Whether it be an opponent or a teammate, who would you identify as maybe the best player you ever played with? And it could be for a number of reasons. Support-wise, it could be ability-wise. Who stands out in your mind in Major League Baseball that you know?
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot of very talented baseball players out there, and I've had the privilege of playing with some guys that are pretty good. I would say like raw talent, a bit and ability. Ronald Acuna is on a level that I don't know if I've ever seen. I became good friends with him when we were just rehabbing when I first came over to the Braves in 2016.
Yeah.
He was just a kid, he was 17 years old. Nobody had ever heard of him. He wasn't like a highly touted prospect or anything. And then the next year he went from low A all the way to triple A and was the number one prospect in all of baseball. And I remember seeing him play in spring training and nobody knew his name. Nobody knew who he was. And he hits 3 home runs in spring training. And the whole time he's just like singing and whistling and like having just the time of his life playing baseball. And he's 18 years old. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, this is just different. There's something special about this kid. So that's probably the most talented player I've ever played with.
Yeah.
But then the most talented guy I've ever played against, I mean, it's hard not to say Shohei Ohtani. It really is. I mean, I've pitched against him and he is a tough out. I remember we had like a scouting report on him and it said like, throw the slider exactly right here and you'll get him out. And I threw the slider exactly right there in a big spot and I did not get him out. I mean, he just whacked it the other way like it was nothing.
Well, I said 2 questions.
Go
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. No, you're good. Well, just to know that he's got 101 in the tank on the mound as well is pretty impressive.
So before I get to your last question, what was you queued up another question for you. What was so difficult to get him out? What was so good about him? Because we see him now, him and Mike Trout are there. What's so good about him? What makes him a great hitter?
Well, so I'm a left-handed pitcher. He's a left-handed hitter. I have a way that I pitch lefties that, usually works in my favor. But because of the way he swings and the ability he has to make an adjustment, I have a hard time with him because he does a really good job with off-speed pitches. He does a really good job of staying with off-speed pitches and like going the opposite way with them. And I could just tell, I mean, he was up in the box thinking like a pitcher, right? Not just thinking like a hitter. Yeah. So he was making adjustments on the fly. And in that moment, I think he knew exactly what I was going to throw, and I played right into it.
What would be your advice for anyone aspiring to have a heart of a champion? From your Major League Baseball perspective, what does it take? Yeah. What based on what you've gone through and where you're at mentally now, what advice would you give to anyone? Baseball, acting, playing the guitar, doesn't matter. What advice would you give?
Well, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's kind of become my mantra. They say like back when Tiger Woods was at his best, the reason why Tiger was so good was because while everybody was playing Tiger Woods, Tiger was just playing the course. And, I've heard that same sentiment when people talk about, Barry Bonds, and Barry Bonds has said like the biggest strength he had was just people didn't pitch him the way they would pitch other people. So they were constantly falling behind 2-0 because they were trying to do something special against him and trying to play outside of their game. So he was always in an advantage because of that. And so I found myself being someone who had a tendency to not just play the course.
Gotcha.
I was listening to the noise. I was paying attention to what other people were doing. I was constantly comparing myself to others. And as soon as I took a step inward and just started really focusing on, I'm just going to do my thing and I'm going to become obsessed with being better than I was yesterday, I found that just became such an easier way to function, an easier way to get through every day, and like just really embracing the process and enjoying doing the little things. It made all the difference.
Wow. Jess, thanks so much for being on the show. Thank you for that advice. For anyone that's tuning in, you can check Jesse's video out on YouTube when it surfaces. But I want to thank you for being on Chuck Bushbeck Live, Heart of a Champion. You certainly have come a long way in your career, and we greatly appreciate you stopping by and sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great talking with you.
Yeah.
You're the man.
All right. Well, have fun in California. I know that's where you're at. And and that'll do it for today. I would like to thank our guest, former Atlanta Braves relief pitcher Jesse Biddle, and our special guest, Andrew Nelson, who popped in from the Reading Phillies, for coming on the show. For our producer, Joe Lee, our executive producers, Jim Sims and CJ DeRoma, thank you all for watching Chuck Bushbeck Live, Heart of a Champion. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page and consider supporting us on Patreon at the link in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on next time, Chuck Bushbeck Live, Heart of a Champion. Thank you, Jess.
You're the man.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.